Welcome everyone. Good morning. Very nice to see you all once again. I've seen a lot of familiar faces, but also few new people. So if you are new here, welcome. My name is Fernanda Landgraf. I'm a senior analyst and project manager here at PCMI, and I'm also the host of our coffee chats. We host these sessions once a month, so people from the industry can have a space to share some learnings, thoughts, trends, also have some discussion about the industry. So feel very welcome to join us. A couple of guidelines before we start. We hope to see your cameras on. We truly encourage participation. During this event, we normally have a guest speaker, but the idea here is that you also interact, open your mic.
Intentamos las 2 de la tarde.
Oh, sorry. So feel free to open your mic, ask questions, make comments. The idea here is that you participate, but just keep in mind that we do publish this material at our YouTube channel. So just mind your comments as you would in any in-person event. All right. So to start our session today, we have a very, very interesting topic. We are going to talk about AI in financial security. So how AI has becoming essential to combat fraud in digital bank. And for that, we have Nicolas D'Ippolito, which is the VP of Artificial Intelligence at Veritran. So Nicolas, thank you very, very much for joining us today. We are super excited for today's sessions. So I will leave this stage to you so you can introduce yourself and also introduce Veritran. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you all hear me well. I'll start with this. I'll keep it short, my introduction, but essentially I've been in Veritran for over, I would say, nearly 2 years now. My background, or before we deep dive into the topic today, I want to briefly tell you who I am and where I'm coming from. I hold a PhD in computer science from Imperial College London, but my specialty lies in the intersection between artificial intelligence and software engineering. So essentially, I historically been focusing on how to make software systems that include artificial intelligence more robust, more reliable, and more performant. And I study computer science here in Buenos Aires, where I live now in the Buenos Aires University. I serve now, as you said, as a VP of AI in Veritran, but I have I'm old enough to have a long career in software companies, in industry and academia. I publish a number of papers. I work in a number of companies. You have all the information there. I don't want to go in details there, but in short, I've been working from different angles, industry, research, and education, and how AI can solve real-life problems. And I believe that now one of the most pressing issues in the financial sector today is fraud. So this is what I wanted to talk to you all about today. And if we move to the next slide now, I want to add to the next. Now, I wanted to introduce a bit on Veritran. We are a global tech company, and we are devoted to simplifying banking experiences. And we do that by, in essence, provide solutions, end-to-end solutions to our customers, in which we inspire our customers to take this digitalization to the next level by offering not only solutions that have very low time to market, but also integrate everything from high-performing solutions, but also high-level banking security system. Essentially, we want to create innovative products that empower currently 50 million people around the world. And since I joined the company, we are not only doing that in top level software engineering, but also introducing machine learning, AI in different angles of our offering. Now, if you go to the next slide, we are a global company. We're based, we started in Argentina, but from here, from the south, we grew north in many places like the US, Spain, Europe, and all over Latam. We have a number of customers and partners that we're proud of those partnerships, but essentially they allow us to provide robust solutions, as I was saying, that nowadays are serving millions of users and support billions of transactions a year. If we go to the next slide, now this is something that was kind of new to me, but was very interesting. We are a somewhat old company, or a company that is not new to this business. We're getting to our 20th year in the market, which means that we started with the old smart post devices to going through the first iPhones and smart phones, going now to the latest, supporting the latest smart phones and other devices. We have more than 50 clients globally. We support 50 million transactions. And as I was telling you, I think I already said all of this. As you can notice, my top skills are not yet showing off because I'm a technical person, but essentially we are a strong company with strong technology, and we support customer experiences that and you can see that in the numbers that we have in the marketplaces, in the applications that we develop. If we move to the next slide now, this is the topic that we wanted to cover today. And the idea that I wanted to cover with you today is that fraud is growing, is diversifying, and is challenging traditional defenses in a way that we couldn't anticipate before. We face an unavoidable reality. Financial fraud globally is constantly evolving. It's adopting increasingly sophisticated forms that challenge our security strategies all over the place. So if we go to the next slide, this is something that I'm taking for Latam, but this is true all over the world. The scale of the problem is massive. Only in Latam, for example, we have 60% of organizations already reporting a significant increase in fraud attempts. 83% of executives are admitting that this is eroding customer trust. And as you all know, trust is something that takes years to build, and it takes seconds to lose. And while we're digitizing products, attackers are digitizing fraud. And this is essentially a race in which we are always coming, by definition, we are coming behind our attackers. By the way, any questions that you have, as we started saying before, please stop me at any point. Don't be shy. I'll be happy to take any questions. I'm sure those will arise as I progress in the talk. But however, let me continue now. Today, more than half of the losses come from digital channels. Nearly 50% of fraud happens during new account creation, many with synthetic identities. We'll talk about that later on. Over 30% of frauds occur during logging due to account takeover by cyber criminals. But something that I think is extremely relevant is that the damage isn't just reputation. The true cost of fraud is in a financial institution goes far beyond the loss of a transaction value. So when you have a transaction that is fraudulent, for every dollar that is frauded, you can go up to nearly $5.5 times the value of that transaction due to operational cost, fine, and productivity losses. So it's not only about the reputation, it's also about money. So we see that how fraud is becoming more targeted, more sophisticated, and how it hits most vulnerable stages of the customer relationship. Now, fraud prevention is not just about protecting financial assets. It's about safeguarding the trust of our customer place in us. Again, is in Spanish we say this, I'll try to translate this in English somewhat, but you need to be safe, but you also need your customers feel that you are safe to them. So essentially you need to be and you need to appear safe to them. And this is something that takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. So by investing in technology and fostering a security-driven culture, we're not only mitigating the risks, but we're also strengthening our reputation in the market. Now, if you go to the next slide, before going into the topic I want to cover today, I want to talk a bit about artificial intelligence. And again, this is critical to me because AI is transforming the fight against financial fraud, but because AI is widely talked about today, it's not only clear to what it is, what's behind it, and what each technology can actually do. And artificial intelligence is a very general field. So it covers from ChatGPT, and I'll mention this because it's a product that I'm sure you all know, to SQL or to even logics. So the field of artificial intelligence is a very wide one, and I want to step into the different parts of it, so you know that although now we're talking a lot about artificial intelligence, there are different aspects of it, different technologies within it, and not all of them serve for the same purpose, and not all of them are the ones that we want for each problem we want to tackle. Now, artificial intelligence in general means that we have systems that can make decisions or perform tasks that normally require some level of human intelligence. Now, within this, we have, and by the way, I'm restricting to the topics that are relevant to this talk. As I said, it's much wider, but I don't want to go into all that detail. Now, we have machine learning, right? And machine learning are models that learn from data. So essentially, we don't program them with rules, they detect patterns on their own. So essentially, imagine machine learning as computer programs that, for example, can learn how to play chess without knowing the rules. So how do you learn playing chess without knowing the rules? Essentially, you need to see chess plays. How many? 10? Not really. You need to see thousands of them, millions of them. And that's why when we talk about machine learning and we talk about neural networks and we talk about all of that, something that us machine learnings or AI people that work on that, I hate the word experts, we always say the same. We always ask for the same thing, data. So the more data you have, the better the data you have. The more access to data you have, the better your models will behave. Now, in recent years, there are two things that have taken center of stage. Is generative AI is one, which is not only before generative AI, we have deep learning. Deep learning uses essentially deep neural networks to solve very complex tasks like computer vision or speech recognition. So when we talk about machine learning, we're not talking about neural networks. We're talking about something else. But these type of algorithms can solve, for example, computer vision, can solve the fact that when you point your phone camera to something, it can recognize a face, which, by the way, is quite simple because faces are simple to recognize. Unbelievably or not, that is true. However, recognizing a fraudulent transaction is much, 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 much harder than recognizing a face, and we'll talk about that later on. Now, in recent years, again, generative AI has taken a lot of hype around it, and within that, large language models like GPT, Claude, or even Gemini, which have also been, everyone is talking about that. And those models have the particular capacity of writing text, generating images, or things like that. In particular, large language models can generate text, not images, but this is what they do. What's the difference between a general machine learning model and a generative AI model? Machine learning models can extract patterns from data, can understand data, can extract things that typically a human being may not be able to see or is not obvious to see. Generative AI generates data. This distinction will be central in the upcoming parts of my talk. Now, I don't want to get you too bored about that, but this is very important. Again, if I want you to get something out of this slide, is the distinction between machine learning or AI as something that has a lot of power to understand the relationship and patterns between data, and generative AI as something that can generate data, can generate text, can have human-like conversations with you. And those differences are critical. If there is any questions, again, please stop me at any point. Now, if we go to the next slide, now we'll start talking about what's going on about fraud. With these new capabilities, we're all very happy we can do a lot of stuff. However, these capabilities has been exploited by malicious actors like cyber criminals to sophisticate and amplify their fraud tactics. We face the combination of scale, precision, and unprecedented complexity on the type of attacks they can do. For example, let me give you a few examples here. So, for example, when we have card not present transactions, like digital transaction, fraudsters can use AI to generate valid credit cards data, enabling fraudulent transaction purchases without physical processing the card. They also can analyze legitimacy spending patterns and mimic them to evade fraud detection systems. So what they can do is this: they can understand our behaviors using traditional machine learning, and then they can use generative machine learning to simulate our behavior and generate fraudulent transactions on behalf of us. Sorry, it's not on behalf of us, essentially. It's simulating us, but for them. So they can combine these two approaches that I was mentioning before in order to generate transactions that look real but are not real. So that's one thing. Then identity theft. This is more and more common these days. They can, with very little data from social media profiles and LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever social media public data we have, with a few seconds of our voices, with a few images of our faces, with very little information, they can essentially generate effective and personalized social engineering attacks by establishing fake connections. They can obtain sensitive data and use it in various forms. again, they can use deepfakes, they can generate patterns of how we behave, they can connect to people similar to us and know different information about us. We'll get into the details of this, but essentially they can create different versions of ourselves and create account bank data, transactions, and many things. But I think we're gonna get into more details of that. Instant transfers, the same thing, right? Because once they know a lot of us, they can simulate people, and I have a few examples of this. For example, they can fake audios or they can fake videos of us and ask friend of us, relatives of us, to transfer money to some people or to them, simulating that is it us that are requesting these transactions. This is happening all over the place, and it's very hard to detect. So now, if we go to the, yeah, sure, sorry, yes, of course.
Could we go back a slide?
Yeah, sure.
How big are each of these as a problem right now? Or are they starting to become them?
Well, I have when I get into slightly more details of each of them, I have examples of them, but they're becoming increasingly big, and we're talking about billions of dollars a year. The thing is, there's one thing about this, which is not many financial institutions want to make public how much they're losing because of this. So essentially, the numbers that you get and the information that you can get out there tends to be somewhat indirect to the actual money that is being lost. And in fact, there's a lot of money that is being lost without even us knowing. And in fact, I'm not brave enough, but I have one email at this point in my inbox that is either magnificently generated, in which I'm supposed to owe some company some money, or it's a complete fake, and I am not sure. At this point, just before starting this call, I got an email and I wasn't able to distinguish if it was true or not, honestly. Now, we're talking about billions of dollars, but the exact numbers are hard to get because...
Well, yeah, the total numbers are very big, and I know far more about it, the real numbers. But I'm interested in creating fake social media profiles to gather information. Is that a huge deal right now? Is that a huge vulnerability that's being exploited right now, or is it just starting to? That's really what my question is. What's happening now? What's...
I think based on my conversations with other people and based on the things I've been reading and my knowledge, I think it's big. Now, it's hard to know in the curve of how big it's gonna be. I can't really say, look, we're here or it's gonna, how big it's gonna be. But I think it's not something like, I don't know, quantum computing, which is, growing, but it's still not so real. This is a real deal. It is happening. It's gonna grow much more. I'm sure it's gonna grow much more. Now we're at the peak of it. I don't think so, but it's a real thing. I don't think this is just something that is starting to happen and it's it's just something that we are alerting people to start preparing for it. It's a real thing. But again, in terms of numbers, it's essentially is what I see, and is why I'm hesitating, because I don't have exact numbers, and when I don't have exact numbers, as a scientific background, the person, I'm not confident to say we are in 50% of impact, but it's a real thing. It's definitely not something that is in diapers.
Nico, I have a question. Considering, sure. I don't know, this is maybe a speculative answer, but considering how big of a problem this is, how sophisticated AI-driven fraud is becoming, how expensive fraud is for banks, is AI actually a net negative for financial institutions rather than a positive? I mean, banks are also using AI to combat, in many ways, right, to improve their operations and improve their marketing and be more personalized with customers and save costs and be more efficient. But is the net actually negative considering the potential fraud and risk to them? Question for anyone, really. Anyone who wants to comment. It's kind of just a food for thought.
That's a great question. But I think that you stated something that I'm not. I would say this: not all financial institutions are really using AI as much as your statement stated, let's say.
Sure. Yeah.
That's one thing.
Yeah, they're still learning, right? And so more so they're victims
yes.
of AI than using it at this point, right?
But also I want to split at least AI in two. Again, generative versus machine learning and analytical AI. So, for example, there's something that I can't do in this setting because I don't know the background of everyone, and I don't even know where everyone is based. But the experiments I've been running here and there is that, for example, banks or financial institutions in general are not even taking the same advantage of things like AI-based recommendation systems to actually upsell things to their customers, like companies like Netflix, Meta, or Google are doing. So when you say they're using AI for being more productive, I would say my impression is that they're not even using AI to even get more revenue from their actual customers.
Got it. So the upside is still a long-term thing, but the risk and the threat is already impacting them.
I think that is the case. But if it's net negative, it's a much stronger statement to do. There's something wanting to talk. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to answer it a different way, and that is that banks are always the last to adopt anything, but the criminal organizations will jump on anything that works. And the only way to combat their AI is for the banks to adopt AI in return.
Okay.
So I'm completely behind you on this one, Nico.
Actually, I'm going to spoil you. Well, I'm going to spoil you I think it's my last statement in the whole talk is something around those lines. But it's like, the only way to I'm very bad at memory, so I need to say it. But essentially, the only way to stop AI attackers is by using AI. So there's no other way to tackle that, because traditional systems that are based in rules will never be able to catch the subtleties of AI-generated attacks in any of the steps in which you can be attacked, from logging to generating transactions or even in any way. But let's move forward, because I think we're gonna be discussing a lot of this in depth later on. But again, that's why I started by distinguishing generative AI versus traditional AI, maybe, which is, you know, analytical AI, if you want, which is machine learning and other things. So now, digital fraud is scaling both in impact and in scale, and the problem, and I think, Nick, your comment comes right to the point here, which is, it's not concerning not just how, like, what to me, what most concerning is not just how much is growing, but how is growing. They're like how they are doing it, so we can try to stop it. Right now, what I try to do now is to tell you a bit about how understand how they attack. And the first step is defending ourselves better. The first step to defending ourselves better is to try to understand what are they doing. So now let's move to the next slide. I'll try to tell you a bit. This is just a very high level idea of what they do on a few things. So for example, some of and again, this is high level, a few of the attacks, and just to give you an idea of how is this happening. But essentially, one of the things they do is they automate tools, bots, to generate credit card numbers. And this is very interesting. Something they do is this. They get, and this is completely unbelievable for me, they get partial number of credit cards. And by the way, to me, for a while I thought this was impossible, but then I learned that this actually happens. They get part of credit card numbers, and they generate plausible credit card numbers, and because they can attack in parallel millions of online stores, they try all those numbers until one of them hits. And once that happens, essentially they already won. So one thing that is important is, for an attacker, they don't need to be successful in one attempt. They can simply, attack thousands at the same time, and with one successful attack, they won. Different is the defensive side, because as financial institutions, we need to be successful on every single defensive line. And that's one of the unfairness situations that we face. Now, they generate credit card combinations, they search for live matches, and this actually has a name, which is carding or card cracking. Now, and this is something that happened. I'm sorry. I realize now that one instantiation of this talk was in Spanish, and I realized that I left the example name as Juan Perez, but actually this is a real name, and you can. I think in the link I left there. No, I think they didn't put the name either. But essentially, this person realized that there was a number of unauthorized charges on his credit card, and the problem was that it took a lot of time to this person to realize that these transactions weren't his, even for the person. And in fact, I don't know you people, but it's very hard for me. It's very unlikely that I check my consumptions. Consumption. No, I don't. You don't say that in English. My transactions. So I'm very likely being robbed at this point. So essentially, they're very good at replicating spending patterns. How they do that? They don't do it with generative AI. Again, they do it with standard machine learning. I'm sorry, I'm very annoying with that, but again, when you've been in machine learning for a while, for long enough, and everyone and the market and everyone is talking only about generative AI, you want to tell people, look, generative AI It's just a fancy name that we're talking lately, but these people is using other things that are kind of the old stuff. Now the good part is I'll talk about this later, but the good part is as they do this, we also can do that. The problem is we need data. We need to understand the data, and we'll go into that later on. Now let's move to the next slide. And the other thing is that we did talk about this, is that today fraudsters use and create really hyper realistic deepfakes, AI generated videos and audios to impersonate executives or clients. And I mention executives because in the example you see on the right, this is something that happened. A Hong Kong employee got a call from his CFO asking for a transfer of $25 million. And this actually happened. There's a news article there. And interestingly enough, what they use here is they use something that is called generative adversarial networks. You don't need to understand the details, but essentially they recreate faces. And what they do is they train these networks to play against each other until the two machine learning algorithms can fake each other. When the two algorithms can distinguish each other, the training ended, and now the algorithm tells you, look, you have something that the other algorithm couldn't distinguish from the real person. This is how advanced the techniques they use to simulate a person work. I don't want to get into the details, but imagine the power they have to simulate a person. That's why they only need a few seconds of your voice or a few seconds of a video view or even an image. Now, if we move to the next slide, this is I think this is what we talked a few minutes ago, which is only AI can stop AI. And I come from the software engineering domain, and in fact, my PhD and part of my research area was on game theory. So essentially, I'm not an evangelist of AI. I only use AI when you need to use AI, but only AI can stop AI in this domain. Until recently, most digital fraud was manual, opportunistic, and somewhat it could be contained with traditional rules. That has changed completely. Today, attacks are massive. As I told you, they can attack every online e-commerce. It's automated and it's constant. There are no people behind this. There are purely algorithms and computer systems. I'm sorry, I'm talking without any stop. Please raise hands, chat me, whatever, stop me. I see Fernanda and
yeah, no, I was just going to complement Lindsay's comment, because at the end, what we're seeing is that AI is there. So if the companies, they are not taking advantage, not just in fraud, but also in other operations and using it, the impact will be negative. But we need to just be aware that AI is here. So we need to take the benefits, because the bad things it's happening. So companies needs to be aware and start using to their benefits. Otherwise, they'll have like negative impact, I guess.
Look, I think you're right. I completely agree with that. But the situation with AI implementation in financial institutions, in banks in particular, is not only on fraud. It's much larger. I will invite you, because this is a general statement that I can make it without hurting anyone. I will not challenge, but I will encourage you all to take whatever bank, I don't mind the bank, whatever bank application you use normally, not now, later on, open it and see if you have any promotions in the app, right? Any promotion, whatever. And ask people, ask your friends, ask people, and check if they have any different promotions. And and check what happens. And check, for example, if you get a promotion for, I don't know, stores that you never bought in, or stores that are actually for men, or stores, you'll see that even for that is not very simple, but you would expect someone to offer you something that is actually plausible for you to get, and the results will surprise you. Try that. No, we're not even talking about fraud. We're talking about even getting the right recommendation for you. Okay, now, the attacks actually, now they're not only automated, constant, and massive, but they're also diverse. It's not a single type. They're coming through different channels. Ultra-realistic phishing, as I told you, I have an email. Honestly, I don't know what to do with that email. It's not even from my province, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Identity impersonation, deepfakes, fake behavior patterns, like, they sound real, they look real. You need to talk to your partner, to your friends, say, did we have dinner here? Is it us? I don't know. A lot of things like that. Now, the biggest challenge is that attackers are learning. They know what to do, they know how to do it, and they use AI models to study how our systems work, as I was saying before. So they imitate the systems, they bypass the system, and they adapt in real time. And this is something even more dangerous. Hannah? No, okay. They adapt in real time. And this is something that was never a thing before. They adapt in real time. So now we're facing threats that deceive traditional system and people, both at the same time. So the question is inevitable. So what do we need to do to respond to this new reality, or what do we do? We need a tool. Again, you all know what the tool is, but we need a tool that can match that speed, that scale, and that intelligence. And when I say intelligence, is that level of intelligence, is the intelligence of being massive and being multi-channel and being constant, that level of intelligence. Let me make one. So that speed, scale, and intelligence, only artificial intelligence can close the gap for us. That statement, I want you to all take it. So only artificial intelligence can close that gap. Having said that, I want to make a very strong statement here that is off the conversation, but I want you all to take this with you, which is artificial intelligence is at most an average human intelligence with a lot of knowledge. But you should never confuse artificial intelligence with a super high level intelligence. So this is something that I wouldn't do. And again, you will read everywhere that artificial intelligence is super intelligence, massive intelligence, but that's not the case. And there are a number of examples of that. However, it's very useful if you train it properly, and it's very useful to protect ourselves from these type of attacks. Now, if you go to the next slide, so again, there's a new fraud game, and I want to think it in this way: it's either scale or lose. So the fraud evolved. I don't want to repeat myself, so let's go to the next slide, so we can talk about a few approaches to detect attacks. And again, I'm just giving you a little tiny bit of everything, but it's something for you to start reading about, or to start introducing yourself into this massive domain. Now,
Nico, if I can,
yes.
We're kind of getting close to the end of our time. So in what's left of what you have here, I'm not sure if you're going to cover, but I would love in the next slides, in your remarks, if you could kind of speak to, so we know this threat is real. We know it's very dangerous for financial institutions. So how do banks make a decision about who to hire or what to look for when hiring an AI service, right? Because they need that type of guidance. So
let's do this. Okay, go, guys. Sorry, folks. Being gender neutral in English is a challenge. Go down. I'll leave you this. These are just techniques, but to me are just techniques. Maybe to you are very relevant. But you could read that. Let's go through. Go one more. No, one more. One more. Sorry, because I want us to discuss about that. This is very interesting, but one more, because I want us to get into that part. One more. Here, I want us to talk about this. And actually, I now realize that there's one thing that design magic. Why I say this? Because you need to. Give me a second. Not only banks, but what should consumers be looking at when choosing AI service, when selecting alternatives to counter online fraud? I'm not sure what do you mean, but Paulo, give me 1 minute. Let's talk about this, and then we go back to that, because I'm not entirely sure what you mean, but I will go back to that. So this isn't magic, and this is something very important, and it's a huge part of actually my day-to-day work, which is this takes experts. And by experts, I'm not meaning me. No, I mean people that understands, deeply understands, at least one, but deeply understands the math behind all of this, and deeply understands how to manipulate the models, what type of models are the best, why. You need to test your models. You need to test how well are behaving. Takes time, takes effort, takes a lot of data, takes a lot of manipulation data, and also takes constant care. Why? The constant care means when you have a software gets old, right? Gets old because the colors get old, because, I don't know, you want a different version, blah, blah. Here, the software gets old because the attacks are constantly changing. And what your model detected as fraudulent yesterday, today has changed. Because now the attackers are using something different. So you need to continuously observe what's going on with your production data. And for that, what you need is model governance, Romulo. Yes, model governance, data governance. So you need a team of experts that goes from data engineering, data scientists, machine learning engineers that make those models scale. You need data analysts potentially. You need engineering. You need a lot of people and a lot of effort, infrastructure, all of that to make sure that this is actually working. That's why I'm sorry, but this is what I do in Veritran. This is why we put a lot of effort in Veritran to solve this for our customers. Because having all of this requires all these people to be coordinated and all the infrastructure needed to maintain all of this. And you need to capture the right data to train these models. And when I mean the right data, I mean all the transactions, but also you need to teach the model which transactions are fraudulent and which are not. Imagine that you're learning, what's fraudulent and what's not, but no one tells you what's fraudulent. How do you learn? This is the type of things that you need to do. So let's go to the next slide. And when you, Lindsay, I think your question was about, how do we take, I'll try to rephrase you. I'm sure I'll fail and you will help me with this, but how do we take, Lautaro? Oh, no. Okay. How do we take the decision or how do we implement all of this? Well, implementing all of this requires expert teams, requires a lot of data, requires constant care, but requires investment. Because imagine that essentially what you're doing is you are implementing a software that at the core of it has a piece of software that we call artificial intelligence that has probabilistic behavior. It's like having a software that at the center of it is tossing a coin all the time. Is this transaction fraudulent? Yes. Oh, excellent. Now I'll stop the user. Do you want to stop the user all the time, Nick?
Yeah. Everyone on this call either represents a financial institution or helps financial institutions. What's the pitch for Veritran? I know it's AI-based, but what's the pitch to them? We can help you. And then what's the rest of the sentence? Because it's like we are going to be the ones that can present it to banks or mobile wallets and say, you should listen to these guys because they can do what? And I think most of us have figured out some answers, but I haven't seen it in a slide.
Sure. What we do is essentially we have all of this integrated in one solution that has everything from login, authentication of the user, integration with your data, analysis of your data to understand what transactions are potentially fraudulent or not. For example, we also can, this is one of the slides that we missed initially, but we can also take action based on the patterns of usage of the application that we develop. So for example, we analyze if you are typing, if the user is typing in a way that is unfamiliar to the patterns of usage of the user. So essentially what we do is we integrate a solution that covers end-to-end all the potential things that we can detect, and is all integrated into the solution, into the cyber resilience solution that we provide.
You see, I like that. That needs to be narrowed down. The banks are going to be looking at two things. They're going to be looking at saying, what are you solving for us? And where does your system plug in? Because that's a level of security on the plug-in part. But narrowing that down is like, we can identify a fraudulent login. We can identify fraudulent transactions from pattern recognition. You're getting a really great sales pitch if you start from that. Because then all of us on this call, we can then remember that. We're not going to remember a lot of the details, but we can go and talk to other people and say, you need to listen to these guys. So I'm looking at this from the perspective of an entrepreneur here, and from the perspective of a banking tech nerd.
Let me ask you one thing.
Yeah.
Would you trust anyone telling you the statement that I just make if I would have told you that in minute 2?
No, you start with the pitch. You've got to get my interest in the first 30 seconds or I'm not going to listen to the rest of it. Tell me what you're delivering. Okay, now tell me how you're delivering it. You start with the pitch to the bank. We're a banking network, so group here.
Yeah, I think more than critiquing the pitch, I maybe in the last minutes, Nico, what we can really, what my question was about is like best practices. How does a bank get this right? Right? This is a massive undertaking. It's not something you solve in a day. Banks are not software companies. What are some crisp best practices? And I assuming that Veritran plays well to those best practices. But what are some key guidance? You said invest, right? Some specific Like, how do you get this right? How do you not waste resources? How do you not get overwhelmed? How do you get this right? If that makes sense.
Well, essentially, you need. Well, my short answer is I am doing this for Veritran, so banks don't need to worry about how to do it right, because we will tell you and we will implement this so you do it right. Right? Now, otherwise, which is to me very hard to do, especially for banks, is to implement it from scratch. And
Sure.
I haven't seen that being successful before.
Yeah. 100%.
This is why I like to introduce all of this, because typically what happens is that people think that AI, first of all, is generative AI, and second of all, is magic.
Right. That is, I mean, when it's such a foreign concept to a lot of people, you do think it's magic. I like what you said, that it's not superhuman intelligence. It's maybe faster. I don't know, but it's normal. It's based on what's already been created. So yeah.
In particular,
we've got a couple questions
Gen AI.
coming in.
Oh, yeah,
got
sure.
a couple questions. Just to wrap up, maybe we could take one of those questions.
Sure. What key points?
I'm gonna hand it over to Fernanda to close us out.
Wait. No, I want to take Paulo and the former question. What key points is bank trying to address from their consumer?
Can you hear me? Am I on?
Yeah, Paulo. Just tell me.
So we deal as a network. We deal with a lot of providers in the AI space. I just use Feedzai as an example because the company I'm with just signed a deal with Feedzai. But I would be interested. You were talking about the consumer. As a consumer, and I am now getting all these threats. You were telling us about how savvy these AI companies are replicating consumer behaviors, etc. So my question is, when I'm a consumer and I'm like now looking, okay, I got to find a solution, because now you've put me in a panic state that they are replicating my behaviors in AI, etc. Now, these services are offered through banks, right? So the banks usually, is there something that you are seeing in the market that these consumers that are now being threatened with these behavioral AI tendencies is, oh, this bank offers me a better AI solution than this bank because of 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, what is the pitch? This is, I think, a little bit back to what Nick was saying. What is the pitch that the bank should be getting out there on the consumer side to actually, because consumers today have many choices in terms of AI options, right? So that's where I was coming from a consumer point of view. What consumer, what are they looking at specifically from a bank or any financial institution offering this service?
That's an interesting point. I think that
and I'm sorry to interrupt. So Nico, so we have pitches from, and I'm just using Feedzai as an example. Feedzai comes and tells us, you should use us because of this, and they present to us what are the trends, what are this. But my question is more, have you heard something from, like, do you guys have trends and behaviors from the consumer itself, the end customer, that would make their decision go with a particular bank or offering? That would be interesting for us to know.
That's a very, very interesting question, because if I understand you correctly, you're telling me, look, me as bank A, whatever, I want to tell my consumer, look, I am protecting you in a way that other banks are not, because this, and that, right?
Correct. And I, as a bank, am today getting pitched by various, AI companies. They use AI as fraud. And so besides obviously the pricing negotiation directly with these companies, is what trends are consumers out there? Like, what is the key thing that I need to address from a consumer that will actually enable me to go with one company versus the other?
I think that I will tell you two things. One is you have very little space to reach your customer with something like this, and I'm not sure that would be. Well, I don't know about this really. I'm not sure that would be your retention, your top retention strategy. But let's say that telling your customer you're safer with me than with someone else is something that you would that will strengthen your argument. Now, when you say that you are talking, or any bank is talking to a number of vendors of AI, one thing that comes to mind is how do you measure them, right? How do you measure their effectiveness in protecting your customers and you as an institution, right? Now, once let's say you measure them, which is very hard because each of them have different benchmarks. So comparing them all with the same data set is also complicated. But let's say that you can. Now, I would use somehow. This is what I would do, and this is what I'm discussing internally. Is I would use my metrics as a proxy to say, look, from some benchmarks that I have in the market, my results are the top ones that everyone can provide. So essentially, I am protecting you from fraud, and my numbers are backing me up better than anyone else, and I'm disturbing you the least possible. You mentioned one vendor of payments that, for example, in Argentina, whenever you do a payment outside Argentina, every payment is blocked by rule. So essentially, if I want to pay something outside Argentina, I need to call first. So that's secure, but that's quite friction. That has a high friction. So essentially, if you can say, look, I protected you, or I can protect you with this level of accuracy without disrupting you, I think there's nothing that can beat that.
Nico,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you just because we ran out of time. So I just need to wrap a few things. But guys,
sure.
You do have Nicolas' contact in LinkedIn. You can also send us some questions through email, and we can discuss with Nicolas and reply to you. But I would just like to thank you, Nicolas, very much for joining us today. It's a very interesting topic, so there's a lot of questions. But please get in touch with Nicolas if you have further questions. And I just want to see you next time in 1 month from here to join our next session.